This is the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max, and this is the iPhone 17 Pro Max. Which of these two has the better camera setup? So with the new iPhone 17 Pro Max and its triple camera setup, we have something that looks very similar to it. Unless you look at it, the camera bump now has a screen, and the third camera is in a little bit different position. Overall, they look very similar, they feel similar. But how good is the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max when compared to the iPhone 17 Pro Max? Because the final result might actually be really interesting. And the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max has something very special up its sleeve. A very big thank you to Trading Zhenchan for sending out the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max for me to test out and see how I like it and making this video possible. But before we jump into the cameras themselves, what are the main differences between the two phones? Because on just the looks department, they look very similar. Well, the biggest difference is gonna be the iOS versus the Android. This is on Android and HyperOS, while the iPhone is on its own iOS system. But also we have a difference in battery, with this being a 7500 mAh battery and this being a closer to 5000 mAh battery. Also, the charging speed on the Xiaomi is much faster at 100 watts charging and 50 watt wireless charge. And one more key difference is this has a fingerprint sensor on the front, while this has the Face ID. So it doesn't use any kind of physical touch ID, rather than just using the face scan for it. But just the design is really similar. Even the wallpapers are pretty much identical. But let's go over the most important part of this video, the cameras themselves. Both these phones have a triple camera setup, where the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max has a triple 50 megapixel camera setup. The iPhone 17 Pro Max has a triple 48 megapixel camera sensors. So it is a very close setup in terms of just the megapixel count. But just the count itself is not everything. Overall, both of these phones have a wide angle lens, a main camera sensor, and a telephoto lens. But also these phones have their own preset color editing built into the camera, where the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max has the Leica Authentic and the Leica Vibrant, while the iPhone 17 Pro Max has its own camera styles, many that you can choose from and edit them while taking the photos. So this gives a little bit more options, but I do feel that the Xiaomi's Leica Authentic and Vibrant are the better of the two. While this gives you more options, this gives you better options in my opinion. The color rendition, color accuracy, and just the final look that you get from the Xiaomi phone tend to give you a much better looking image than from what you can get on the iPhone pre-existing photo styles. Both of these phones support JPEG and RAW photos, meaning that you can take JPEG ready-to-go photos, but also you can take the photos in RAW, giving you more flexibility in post-production and really making the photos your own. If you like the way the photos have been edited, they actually have been edited with one click, with my Lightroom preset packs. If you're interested in Lightroom preset packs for your RAW photos, check out the link down below for my Lightroom presets. Going a little bit more in depth between the two. Well, the iPhone has like a triple camera setup where all of them create this triangle. The Xiaomi has pretty much like a line, with the last wide angle being a little bit small camera on the bottom, on the black line below the screen itself. So it's a little bit different, and it does have a little bit of an implication, especially for video, but we're gonna go into that in a second. But there's also another implication. The triple camera setup feels a little bit more similar on the iPhone, where all the lenses look a little bit more same, where the Xiaomi's, with the wide angle lens being on the bottom, feels like an afterthought. Essentially, I found myself a lot of times, having my finger in its way, but also there's one more key difference. The iPhone's is a little bit wider, and I prefer that because the 0.7 times magnification of the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max makes it feel like it just lacks a little bit of that extra wrench that I get with the iPhone and I'm missing on the Xiaomi. And don't get me wrong, the photos look good on both of these phones. They are sharp with really nice details. And while the details might be even better on the Xiaomi in many cases, it does feel like, because it is like an afterthought lens with its being just the least visible on the smartphone, it does feel that way in photos too. It just lacks that special wide angle look, which means it really feels like just a slightly wider main camera sensor. Where on the iPhone you definitely feel the difference between the main camera sensor and the wide angle lens, which just makes me feel like out of the two, I would prefer the wide angle of the iPhone 17 Pro Max. On the main camera sensor though, it is a different story. I personally have to say that both of these perform really good with a really nice quality that can shoot up to 48 and 50 megapixel, which really give you nice clarity and detail. I do feel straight out of camera, without editing raw photos in post-production, just straight out of camera what we get, the color rendition, color accuracy, and just the way the photos look, I much more prefer the look of the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max. They feel more artistic, color accuracy and color science is better in my opinion, and overall look more like a camera photo, so something like a proper camera instead of a smartphone camera, where the iPhone 17 Pro Max, while it's a great camera, does still have that feeling of a smartphone camera. It's not bad per se, but I do feel like if I was to pick one photo out of the two, something that would be straight out of the phone, straight into, Instagram or social media, I would probably say the photos from the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max look much better. They just feel ready to go. They're already pretty much done. Where the iPhones feel a little bit more like a RAW without even taking a RAW photo. And you can change the photo styles, but it's still not gonna be the same thing. I also feel like the Xiaomi has a better focus distance. You can get a little bit closer, making the background blur even bigger. While the iPhone 17 Pro Max seems to have the problem where pretty much all the lenses have a really far focus distance. So if you want to take a photo with the main, sometimes you're gonna switch to the wide, where the Xiaomi can still focus with the main camera, making the photo look better, sharper, and using the better camera, and giving you more megapixels in the process. But just having the two side by side, they look good. Both can be really nicely used, and both are really usable. Both are really good, high quality camera phones. Really nice smartphone cameras. And then we have the telephoto, the ×4 on the iPhone 17 Pro Max and the ×5 on the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max. It isn't a big difference, ×4 and ×5, but the ×5 gives you a little bit more range. It really is dependent. If you're shooting a little bit closer, the 4x zoom can be a benefit because there is a less difference between 1 and 4x zoom. The Xiaomi has a little bit bigger difference, but at the same time it gives you that edge on the longer side. So if you want to shoot a little bit farther, you have that a little bit more zoom straight out of the camera. There also seems to be a difference in terms of just the way it processes the photo, where at even bigger digital zooms, or the Fusion camera of the iPhone at 8x zoom, it looks good. It definitely looks really nice. It doesn't have that artificial look to it. But you can definitely see the more you zoom, the less you have of the quality. Where the Xiaomi is doing a little bit differently. Up to a certain point it's gonna be digital zoom, but at some point it's gonna actually turn into AI and essentially sharpen it in post-production, which is good for everyday shooting if you want to get a photo of something far away, but it does add in a little bit of artifacts, and it is not the same as having a proper photo. So it's kind of like a give and take. You get a nicer image, but at the same time it's a little bit more fake. So it's gonna be user dependent. I feel like both of them have their own good and bad sides to it. And to be honest, it's just a different philosophy, being a little bit less artificial and more artificial. But just as the 5x zoom and 4x zoom, both are great. Both are really sharp. Once again, the Leica Vibrant and Authentic just make the photos from the Xiaomi a little bit more appealing, straight out of the camera. But in terms of just the sharpness, quality, both are really, really nice. There's one last distinction between the two. When I take photos with the ×5 zoom, you can really get close to the subject, making that nice background blur and, details on the photos, where I cannot do the same with the iPhone. I was actually taking a photo of a leaf and I had it at 4x zoom, 5x zoom. This looked incredible. I wanted to take a photo like this on the iPhone and it didn't seem as sharp, and I thought something is wrong. Like 4x zoom or the iPhone in general is not looking as good as the Xiaomi. When I zoomed into the details of the leaf itself, it seemed like it was really blurry versus really sharp. But when I went into details, I noticed that it was actually using the ×5 zoom, where this was actually 1x zoom, digitally cropping into 4x zoom, because it felt like it was too close, while I was already pretty far away from the tree. So this is something that I don't like about the iPhone. The focusing distance is pretty far from the subject, and because of that, you cannot take those really nice macro or artistic shots that you can take with the Xiaomi. The focusing distance on the main and the telephoto really make this an incredible phone for like artistic shots, where the iPhones tend to just, switch to a different lens and then not take the photo the way you would like to. So you can take great photos and you're gonna have to play to its strengths. You really use the hardware how it's made, where this is much more versatile. Just gives you more options, better looking image. You can take a photo the way you want to, instead of how the phone wants to. It is a hardware limitation. I found that the minimal focus distance of the iPhone cameras is way farther than the Xiaomi, which gives this a beautiful edge in terms of that. And also that makes the Xiaomi better in terms of macro photos. Just overall using a telephoto or the main camera sensor as opposed to the wide being the main macro photo camera makes just the Xiaomi a much better macro photography smartphone of the two. But what about selfies? Because these two are incredible in that department, but they have a much different approach to it. Center stage camera essentially is more of a square design camera sensor, meaning that it can crop into vertical and horizontal without having to move the phone itself. You just press what you want on the screen and that is what you get without losing any quality. And it's great for example, vlogging. You can vlog holding the phone traditionally and still vlog in vertical or horizontal. Another benefit is you're looking at the screen and it just looks everything is in the same plane instead of having this and looking to the side where the camera is, or looking at yourself and just makes this feeling that you're looking off to the side. So this is a really good change. Overall, the selfies on the iPhone 17 Pro Max are definitely really good. One of the better of the cameras out there on the market, and the color science of the face and everything looks incredible. On the other hand, the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max has a nice camera on the front for selfies. But there is one key difference here. The better selfies on this phone are actually with the back cameras, because you can actually turn on the back screen as like a screen to see what you're shooting with. So essentially, I can take photos and selfies like this and see myself on the little screen on the back. And because of that, I can take really good high quality selfies and videos with the better cameras on the back, making it a much better looking image, because the background separation, the background blur, the bokeh is much nicer with a bigger, better sensor. The photos themselves are sharper, just overall looking much better. So while the iPhone has incredible selfie capabilities and it's very versatile, and I feel like it's great for everyday usage, the end result with the Xiaomi is something that could be a game changer, and I really love the way they implemented that. It just works so good and the end result is incredible. And you can definitely feel the difference between taking a selfie with the front and the back sensor. And I have to say, this is an incredible feature, making this one of the best selfie cameras on the market. But talking about selfies and photos of people, in the portrait modes or just in general when taking the photos, while I do love the colors of the Xiaomi, I do feel that the iPhone just produces better photos in the department of portraits, because the skin tones, colors, and the contrast on the face, for example, is much better, making the people look healthier and better than they are on the Xiaomi. It feels much more natural also, where the Xiaomi, because of its amazing processing, it's kind of like the same thing that happens to the photos of different things is also the downfall of its portraits, because I feel like the contrast and the colors tend to be a little bit off sometimes, and it's just a little bit too harsh, making it a little bit unflattering. So it is, in my opinion, the better in terms of people, and this one is better in terms of everyday shooting. If you're enjoying the music in this video or in any other of my work, check out the links down below for copyright-free music for your YouTube channel and your creations. But what about video of the two 17 Pro Max phones? I'm gonna have to be honest straight out of the gate. The iPhone has probably one of the best videos capabilities out there on the market. The quality you get and the look of it is just incredible. I really love the way it takes the videos. And the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max is not bad per se. It's really good on the high end, but it's not as good, if you know what I mean. The iPhone has the better colors, in my opinion, in the photo mode. It feels a little bit more natural, and especially when changing the lenses, it feels like all the lenses are really nicely matched. This does have a little bit more of a cutoff between the lenses, not only in the animation is much smoother on the triple camera setup of the iPhone, and that is to do with the triple triangle design, where this is more of a line, with them being a little bit, wide, telephoto and main, just makes it a little bit more of a jump between the lenses. Also, the colors are a little bit too harsh in my opinion, and much better on the iPhone. And while the Xiaomi has really good stabilization, once again the iPhone has incredible stabilization, so in more dynamic scenario, the iPhone has a better stabilization, and everyday shooting is going to be pretty similar. And both of these can support log formats. On the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max, you can shoot in log up to 4K 60 frames per second across all the lenses, while the iPhone supports even ProRes RAW on all of the lenses, which is incredible for grading in post-production, for example on DaVinci Resolve. So in the video department, I feel like the iPhone is definitely the better of the two. So overall, it is a really close battle between the two. I feel like there's some benefits on the Xiaomi, while other benefits on the iPhone. In my opinion, straight out of the camera, the Xiaomi has better photos, just much more appealing. Also, the Xiaomi seems to be a little bit more versatile with its close focusing distance, the macro capabilities of the different lenses, overall just more versatile and more photo camera-like. Just gives you a little bit more options, feels like a proper camera, where the iPhone seems to be a little bit more limited. On the other hand, the iPhone definitely has the better skin tones, but going into the selfies, screen is definitely a nice game changer. While the iPhone's center stage selfie camera is definitely a nice evolution for everyday selfie takers. And last but not least, the video, like I said, is in my opinion better on the iPhone 17 Pro Max, but it's also really great on the 17 Pro Max from Xiaomi. If you have any more questions about the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max or the iPhone 17 Pro Max, let me know in the comment section down below. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I hope you guys enjoyed this video once again, and I'll see you next time.